All right, greetings everyone, and welcome to the Middle Grades Conversation. This is our sixth webinar of the year. My name is Don Taylor. I teach sustainability at Main Street Middle School in Montpelier. And tonight we're grateful that we have a guest, Kait Roukey, who's sort of a younger teacher, and she's going to be talking to us about her experience teaching at the middle level. Before we begin and before our contributors introduce themselves, this work is sponsored by the Middle Grades Collaborative, the Tarrant Institute of Innovative Education, and our partner with Up for Learning. So thank you again for joining us. We're right on the cusp of a big winter break, and I would like folks please to introduce themselves. And we'll start with Meg, and then Meg, if you could hand it off to whoever you choose next, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Don. I'm Meg O'Donnell. I teach 7-8 humanities at Shelburne Community School in Shelburne. And I'm going to pass it to you, Kait.
Hi, I'm Kait Roukey. I am teaching 7th grade ELA and social studies at Browns River Middle School in Jericho. Thanks for having me. And Maura.
Hi, I'm Maura Wheeler. I am the proficiency-based learning and technology integration coach for the Moyle South School District. Christy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Christy Howell. I am a program associate at Up for Learning. And prior to that, I was a middle and high school English teacher for about 18 years. So lots of experience in the classroom and really happy to be here today.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. So again, we have a guest, Kait Roukey, who's going to be speaking with us, and Meg, I think, is going to facilitate that conversation. So Meg, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. My friend Kait, Kait, I'm going to let her introduce a little bit more about herself in terms of what she's doing currently. Kait joined my team at Shelburne as a St. Mike's intern in her junior year, and then came to do her student teaching her senior year, which started in the fall of 2019 and ended abruptly in March of 2020. And where many student teachers, I think, had lots of options of of just trying to wrap their brains around this idea of like, oh my gosh, it's my senior year, it's March of my senior year, I'm in the middle of my student teaching, and I'm now being asked to leave campus and go home. Kait stayed with my team all the way until June. And she was on with us every day and rallying the troops, and apologies. Sorry about that. And so Kait and I think as much for so many experiences, but have really connected and through student teaching and just trying to go through a pandemic together. And so it's been a pleasure to have her as a mentee and just help support her as she's navigating these really challenging years. And in subsequent conversations, we try to touch base once a month. And Kait has just been honest about some of the struggles of what it means to be a new teacher in the field. And I've commiserating with what it's like to be a veteran teacher in the field during these times. It just seemed important to leverage her voice and to support her. She's leveraging her voice for so many other things. Before so Kait, we've prepared a couple of questions just about what's her current teaching experience been like, what are some things that have been challenging, what's been surprising, what is she proud of, and what support she might be looking at. And then she has a couple of questions for us as a panel. I'm looking forward to that part. Before we begin, Kev, do you want to introduce yourself?
And good everybody, good to see you. Kevin Peely-Hunt. I'm a generalist on Swift House at Williston Central School. Welcome to our guests. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so Kait, why don't we you want to just give us a little bit about your first, your teaching experience thus far and give us the context of where you're at?
Yeah. So Meg already told you that it was an honor to be her student teacher for what I like to say 2 years. I was her intern my junior year, like she said, and then did my full-on student teaching with her my senior year when I was at St. Mike's. And I'm ever so grateful to be in her room and see all of the changing things that happened over those 2 years. So that's where my classroom time started. Last year was my first year of teaching. I was out in Virgins, teaching 8th grade language arts over there. I was really lucky to have a supportive team, even though we were building a new team in the wonderful time of hybrid learning. Last year, I saw my kids for 2 days a week. I had half the group Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays were remote, and then half the group came in on Thursday, Friday. So that was a challenge that we were all facing, unfamiliar territory, but thankful to have that support there. And now this year I'm in my second year of teaching at Browns River Middle School, teaching 7th grade ELA and social studies. I'm a member of a 2-person team. So my teaching partner teaches math and science.
Awesome. So Kate, I wonder if you could just kind of share with us, on these conversations that we have once a month, it really is just that it's a discussion, it's a conversation. We talk about what are some of the current challenges that people are facing. What are some of the things that you see as some of those challenges that you're, trying to work through as a new teacher?
Yeah, so right now, especially, overall demoralization and inability to feel the rewarding parts of the job are definitely barriers and challenges. It's really challenging to feel like I'm constantly pouring from an empty cup, just exhausted, and the feeling of being perpetually behind. I don't know if I've ever been like caught up or in a place where I feel good, and I don't know if I ever will. So that's something that's challenging to feel comfortable with, but something that I'm trying to feel comfortable with as things progress. I know that challenge isn't only mine, and I do want to preface this conversation by saying that I can't speak for all new teachers or all teachers at all, but I am thankful for the opportunity to share my experience. Going off of that, it is challenging to hear veteran teachers feeling the same way that I am, because part of me wishes that I was the only one feeling this way, so that there was a little bit of hope, like, okay, the dreaded first few years, sure, I heard they were going to be hard. To what caliber, I didn't know, but right now it is challenging to see my veteran teacher teammates and colleagues feeling similarly to me.
Right. Like we, some of the things that we just talk about when we're catching up are just those ideas of, what we walk into the classroom every day feeling, right? And who we're interacting with, or, some of those elements of the job that we thought we had pretty well versed. And then, but as we're coming into the school year, here it is January, February, and some of those challenges are still there. I wonder if you were saying yesterday something about, that I thought was pretty profound, this idea of how you approach, what you, or I guess maybe I should ask this, how does it feel different from what you had to do, say, even last year, or even when you were a student at St. Mike's, when you were getting ready to teach? Do you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. So being a student teacher and then becoming a teacher felt like a huge jump. one that maybe I wasn't expecting. One thing that was different from college to teaching, I think is another challenge is just giving myself permission to stop working. Because when I'm in school, or when I was in school, it felt like that was my life. I was paying to go to college. I was paying for an education, and I wanted to do it well, and I wanted to get all that I could out of it. And the expectations were high, rightly so, so that we can try and be the best teacher that we could be. But in a time where I'm trying to find like work-life balance and remembering what I enjoy outside of school, I need to pump the brakes on that a little bit, and give myself permission to do things that are good enough. Because I think my perception as a young teacher is that if something isn't my best, then it isn't enough. And that's just not true. Because not everything we do is going to be hours and hours and hours worth of work, or else it's not sustainable. So that was a really big challenge coming in, especially with COVID, because I had nowhere else to be and nobody else to see. So I just kept working. I filled that time with work. And now this year, I need to be really intentional about not filling my free time with work. And that's been something that has been a challenge, struggle for sure. And something that I wish I knew maybe coming into teaching, so that I could be prepared.
Right. I think that's such important insight, right? Is because the things that normally would fill up our time, not in a pandemic, would be the things that fill our bucket, right? We'd be socializing, go out to dinner, you'd go to see live music, you'd do things that that would allow you that freedom. And absent that, you fill in the gaps, right? And so you end up devoting all this time to your job, and in some ways the job asks that of us, and then we also let it, right? And so it's trying to find like, how do we hold room for both, and not and how do we now adjust to, if life is perhaps opening up a little bit more, the reality is, oh my gosh, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm supposed to do this and do it well. What would you say has been your biggest surprise as you've navigated these last 2 years? What's something that's been felt like your biggest surprise?
Well, in middle school, I feel like surprises come daily. So it's hard to pick one big surprise. But one overarching would be student behavior in classroom management. You really don't know behaviors until you're in it and on your own, and building your own class norms and class expectations just in a room. And I shouldn't really say on my own, because I've had really amazing teammates and a teaching partner with a lot of expertise and help in setting full team norms so that we present as a united front. But I never realized how many moving parts of a classroom are impacted by classroom management. One thing that my teaching partner and I have been incorporating into our daily routines is mindfulness, just to encourage students to take time to recognize how they're feeling and how that translates to the classroom, and how they can start to regulate on their own. That seems like a huge obstacle this year. So we're trying to hit it head on and hand over responsibility to kids, but it impacts everything.
It sure does. And I imagine too that absent of, I think the thing that I keep thinking about from your perspective, Kate, is if I've been teaching for 27 years, right, I have 25 years to look back to see that I've had those moments of like, ease, or that my toolkit has worked in terms of classroom management. And that's completely gone outside, that's completely been a challenge for me as a veteran teacher this year, is that the things that I thought I had in my toolkit are just no longer working. I wonder, before I go, Kate, to this question that I want to ask you about what you're most proud of, is I wonder if other teachers could like weigh in just on what has been something that's been the biggest surprise. I know Kev and Maura and Christy, maybe like some of those things that we've talked about. Do you want to just quickly share what's something that's been the biggest surprise this year that you feel like result of this, here we are in February. And it looks like Don put in the chat the speaking order. Let's see. So Maura, would you want to just jump in and sort of share something that's felt like the biggest surprise for you?
Sure. I think I reflected on this a lot, actually. Between like December and January, we had the end of our school year when we had our sort of like curriculum camp, and then when we were doing sort of the most substantial planning over the summer for the school year. We were not in masks. We were thinking that we would be in a very different place. We had written these plans for recovery, and we left last school year feeling really different than what we're experiencing day to day, even up till now. And I think that coming back into the building, we were very unprepared for what the transition would look like, especially for our young adolescents, and how do we support them. And I think we didn't necessarily, or I could say it this way, I think I was surprised at maybe what we had missed in thinking about students' needs and how we support them coming back, because I think it was really challenging, the transition back to full-time in-person learning. And also for, like, how do we take care of each other in that space as well? Because I think it was a shift for every person in our organization. So I think that that would be the summary of my biggest surprises. Kevin?
Thanks, Maura. Couple things that really stood out to us as we've been like reflecting as a team is missing some of the big team building pieces that we've been able to do over the years. And we're a 4-year team, and we really, like, our foundation comes to like our teaming and the way we build our culture. Like having our overnight camp out in the beginning of the year, and getting the parents in the school for our new 5th graders for Hopes and Dreams conferences. Like those little pieces that seem, they're fun events for us that, we missed with our 5th and 6th grade class. It's been really surprising. I guess not surprising, but it's been like really telling to see how important those moments are, because, like day in and day out, we're like, wow, our kids are missing like a lot of empathy. And I think it's because we haven't had those moments of like, this is what it means to be on a team. This is how your actions impact others in different ways. And it's, led us to have to backtrack a lot and utilize more restorative circles and whatnot, which is great, and having good conversations. But it's incredible like how important those times are to start building your community. And when you don't have that, it's like those are pivotal years when kids are 9, 10, 11 years old, where if you're missing those times, when they're in 5th grade and they're seeing our 7th and 8th graders who already are established in the routines and the culture, when they're not able to see that, then it's like we're trying to rebuild what just kind of has been functioning as this like really well-oiled machine for a while, and now these kids haven't really seen it. So it's that's been hard and surprising for us. And then I think the other thing that was a disappointing surprise is coming into this year, districts, especially our district, I think put the bullet points on the slideshows of, we really care about SEL, we really care about equity, and we haven't been walking the walk very much. The last 3 faculty meetings we've had has been about iReady and data. And it's like, if you're going to tell us that we care about these things, we need to, put it at the forefront of what we're spending our time on, and trainings that we're doing with our faculty. So that's been an unfortunate surprise. I really thought that after the pandemic, people were going to wake up a little bit and notice like what was important in education, look beyond the numbers a little bit. But I think we're still getting some pressure from the top down, federal, state level down to district admin, about what really matters to them. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Kev, I would just echo that same thing. Like the disconnect between sort of the boots on the ground and the higher echelon of their needs, and it's not always transparent. We're not always totally clear about where the squeeze is coming from, and so sometimes that makes it more frustrating because we feel like we're trying to uphold all of these, tweak all these levers here, like raise this, lower this. I think student behaviors are certainly one of them. And I think just I guess I don't know if it's like a good surprise or not, but just the need for kids to just connect with their peers. Like they just crave it so much that they're like, they just don't have those social norms. And so when we can create like we've had a few moments where it's like, oh, this is what they need, like that daily walk, that's what they need. And that's been a positive sort of takeaway. And I just feel like we had all this information from last year about what we wanted to do differently, and we can't actualize it. And that's been really hard. Christy.
Hi, everybody. So this is my first year at UP. I started in August after, as I said, many years of being in the classroom. This is just so powerful to hear you all speak. So my observations with working as in sort of a facilitator consultant capacity is that we've had to just be incredibly nimble and flexible with all of the schools from one week to the next, sometimes one day to the next, because of lack of staffing, our partners out with COVID. Sometimes schools will like close altogether and we can't go in. So just recognizing like, oh my gosh, this is just so difficult for teachers, and just the day-to-day, kind of having to shift expectations for what we're going to get done. And then I think too, just when we meet finding that sometimes we just need to put the agenda aside and just listen to the kids because they're in pain. So many of them, just talking about that social emotional piece and just some of the incidents around racism and homophobia. We've been working with schools who've had just like horrendous graffiti incidents. And so really having to say like, okay, Linda, to like get these, particular steps done. And we've had to say, whoa, like we're putting the agenda aside. You all need to just talk and we'll listen and empathize and have you connect with each other. Because as you said, Meg, like that is so important that they connect with each other. So it's been just an incredibly eye-opening year, moving from being a classroom teacher in this role and just sort of getting this overview of what's happening in lots of different schools. So thanks. And I think I'm passing it to Don.
Yeah, and as usual, the more I listen, the more I probably have connections to. I would kind of echo what Kevin was saying. I think the biggest surprise for me has been the return to traditional structures, even though so many, it was so obvious. And it like these traditional structures, I think, for example, one thing that, again, this is a connected surprise, is technology's footprint. A lot of our kids spent many hours and hours on technology, gaming and interacting and talking over Discord with their peers. And we're not doing any of that in our schools. We're in some cases promoting a culture of compliance. And I've been fortunate to move into a different position where we're doing a lot of project-based learning. And I'm also working with Up for Learning to develop youth partnership structures. And we go out, we've been doing community walks, or we've been doing these projects, hands-on learning projects. And then to do that, and then to come back inside and expect kids to sit down for any length of time, it's jarring. You're just like, why would I want to do that? And I feel like I know that Maura and Kevin have both taught, I think, courses in middle level organization. and how much the schedule drives what we're doing and how much the schedule is driving some of the difficulties. We have all these transitions. And I think if anything, teaching in a pod last year taught me that having very few transitions was completely beneficial to some of our kids who don't, who are like papers are falling out of their notebooks as they're going from class to class. And when they were in a pod, that didn't happen. And so we've doubled down on things that we know make middle school more challenging. And I think that's a real surprise. I also feel like I don't hear much about personalized learning anymore. And to me, personalized learning is absolutely what needs to happen to get kids more engaged and back into school and believing that school is a positive place. I think right now there's a lot of disaffection with school, and a lot of kids are saying, why am I doing this? What's the point? And I think that's even more prevalent now after COVID. And I feel like I don't know if I've ever seen as much disengagement. It's not universal, but kids who are disengaged are really disengaged. And kids who are struggling are really struggling. And I think teachers are, Kate, you mentioned classroom management. I think that even, I thought my classroom management was pretty good, and it's been a struggle this year. And so how are we repairing those relationships? And just also a connection to what Kevin was saying, we were going strong on the equity and anti-racist education. And then now that we're kind of back, everybody said, oh, we're going to be back to normal. And it's back to normal in the sense that we're not listening to youth. We're not listening to these voices who wanted to be talking about these critical issues that are happening in society. And so that's been a surprise and a little bit of a disappointment. And if I hear people talking about reading scores, I mean, that's important, right? Don't get me wrong, but data-driven is not what we need right now. We need compassion, empathy, and activities that get kids fired up to be back in school. Joe?
Well, hello. Boy, right at the end there, I thought you were Bobby Kennedy, Don. When you started going with what we need now is compassion. That's a pretty famous quote. Very good. Well, the biggest surprise for me, it ultimately isn't a surprise. One of the things was all this is brand new, right? This COVID thing, wearing masks, having our rooms set up differently, not having kids being able to move or interact with each other in ways that we have always wanted them to be able to do. And so for a long time, I was really struggling, depressed, having a really hard time with it. And then I started thinking, well, let's start doing the stuff that we know works. Let's start. It's not new. The problems, the issues that we're facing have different names, but really we're still dealing with the same age group who go through the same developmental changes. And so let's just do the stuff that we know. And so let's have feedback from our kids around what they want to do. So we started surveying, and I've talked about this a little bit. We started surveying kids on a bi-weekly basis, and we started getting feedback about what they were looking for. During student-led conferences, we listened to the parents who were stressed in the ways that they were stressed. And then we adjusted our schedule so that we had less transitions and we had more time for students to work in the day. And each week there was time set aside for them to play, to have fun. And we could talk about those things and we could plan for them. Don, you talked early on about taking a daily walk, and we incorporated that into our day. And just taking what we know are good middle grades practices that address the needs of the age group that we have, and then modifying them to the situation we're in. And then being advocates at the leadership level in our building so that we could modify our schedule and we could do things that were not necessarily being done in other places in the building. But being able to always refer back to best middle school, best middle grade practice as the reason why we're trying to do these things. We aren't getting, I'm saddened to hear that many of you are getting this pressure from above around test scores and that sort of stuff. In our district, we're not really getting that. We're still responding to the disengagement of the students and the depression that many of them are in. And we're trying to provide ways to get them engaged. Don, you talked about personalized learning, and I guess what we're trying to push is community-based learning, or the idea that we are a community and we're promoting that. And what does that mean? And so, yes, what are your interests, and what are your interests within the context of this larger organization that we're in here at the building, but then also beyond it. And so I guess that's a little bit of a twist on that same idea of becoming engaged because of what you're interested in. We're asking students to become engaged because of what you're interested in, but also what could contribute to the greater good, what can contribute to us all existing here together. Because all those issues that you talked about around behavior issues and racial conflict and gender issues, all that sort of stuff is everywhere. And it's more open than it was. And I don't know that that's necessarily certainly it's bad. It's the whole experience of it, but at least it's out there and we can name it and we can address it and we can strategize with the young people around how to address it. And one other thing that I've talked about before is students don't trust us anymore. And they have reason to not trust us. For 3 years, we have been promising them things that have not come true. And so, especially Don, you've talked about young teachers and how frustrated they are. And I think that's part of it because typically students in our age group, they tend to be attracted to the younger teachers. They have an affinity. There's a relationship. But the kids, we were just talking about it again today. The student said, "No, we don't trust any of you." Yeah. It doesn't. You're all in the same boat. If you're beyond our age group, you're all in the same category of not being able to own up to having understanding of what's actually going on and share it with us as young people, and then being able to strategize how to make a difference in a positive way. We have not done that time after time after time. There hasn't been a unified message within our buildings typically, or within society in general. So that's going to take time to work its way back. And I think once I acknowledged that and owned it, I said, yeah. How many times did I stand in front of kids and say, "Oh, I think it's going to get better. Next month, maybe we'll be able to do this or that." Anyway, I've talked too long. But yeah, a lot of surprises. But the ultimate thing is going back to the foundation of what is best middle grade practice and applying it to today's circumstance. Advisory is SEL. You can just take the things from the past and change the names. And a lot of what's being promoted now is just in a new catchphrase for things that we've been pushing for a while. Done.
Joe, thank you so much for your wisdom. I always appreciate hearing, we always appreciate hearing from you and hearing that. Rebecca's iPhone, I'm not sure if you want to just respond to that that sort of question about, what's something that surprised you or not. And feel free to unmute if you'd like to, or we can continue on. Okay. We'll just, so Kate, we had a couple of other questions for you. And oh, sorry. Come join us.
Is this Becky?
Oh, no, Meg, it's Becky. It's Becky. I might be on a delay, and I'm just here to listen. I'm sorry I'm on a delay, and I'm sorry that I'm awkwardly jumping in. I really just wanted to hear, and I was really interested in what Caitlin had to say. So I appreciate you trying to include me, but go ahead and carry on, and I'm going to have to leave in a minute anyway. So thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you. Sorry about that. Kate, so one of our other questions was around something that you feel good about or psyched about that you've held true to as you've navigated these challenging times. And then the second question was about sort of supports, like what do you wish you had, or what would you what's something that you would like to, and since Becky only has a few more minutes, I wonder if you want to maybe think about what's something that you wish you had in teacher prep that or in current situations that you're looking for.
Sure, thanks. I do want to build off of some of Dawn and Joe's thinking around like PLPs and PBL and all of those things that we know are good for middle school and that we've been trying so hard to build into middle school. You all for much longer than I have, but it's really unfortunate to see those things go, because those things do help us build relationships with our students, and those things do help us gain trust. And one of the things that I am most proud of in my work is my effort to build relationships with students. Do I feel successful in that this year? No, unfortunately. And it's felt particularly challenging to connect with our students this year. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head by saying all of those things are missing. It's not asking questions about their afternoons or their activities outside of school. We do a lot of that, and we ask for their feedback in terms of how they're feeling, but those really personalized and unique experiences that help build community and just really, really authentic relationships are missing. So I guess that's something that I'm proud of, but I want to keep working at, but noticing that absence is super eye-opening. One thing that I actually just did this week was sit in my class. So I'm sitting at a desk with my students because it felt too traditional to be standing in front of the room talking at students instead of with them. And I was super uncomfortable. The kids were like, why are we sitting like this? We're all in a horseshoe. And I said, well, I want to be like with you guys. We're all working together, and it doesn't feel that way when I'm standing in front of you. And the dynamic has changed. Mm-hmm. So just that small tweak is something that I want to continue. And I want to continue to find those moments where we are working as a unit. We're not working against each other, which it felt like sometimes, and we're not working alongside each other. We really are all one community, and to show them that physically at least helped this week. And up until this week, I felt like I was really struggling to connect with my kids, which is an unusual feat. It wasn't comfortable territory because I do feel like I can connect with students.
I love that move. That's a power move, right? That's, that's following your gut and sort of reading the room and saying, okay, something's not working. And just that positionality sometimes is like, oh, here's, let's level it. Let's call it. Is there something you wish that, that you could identify as a support that you wish you had that might, or something that you're seeking now that you're like, boy, if I could just access this tool or resource or whatever it is that might feel so helpful, supportive in this time?
Well, if a crystal ball isn't an option, there are some things that I know that there couldn't have been resources when I was in school or preparing to be a teacher because of the current situation that we're in, which makes it even harder. Like it wasn't a reading that I missed when I was in school, or it wasn't a conversation that I missed when I wasn't in school. It was nothing that we were preparing for. But something that has been really, really prevalent just in these past 2 years when we're talking about teacher care and preserving teacher worth is just talking about that kind of social or that work-life balance. When I talk about how I feel like work is just consuming me, a lot of people are like, yeah, well, those are the things they don't teach you in school. And my question, I guess, is why, or why can't we start to build those things into some curriculum and some courses, like genuinely practicing how to make time for yourself. Like I was saying earlier, that's been just one of the biggest challenges, is getting out of work for a second, because that shift from college to the real world is huge. And really any resources to build my tools.
Right.
Any tools to add to my toolkit in terms of classroom management, SEL, all of those things, so that we're not reinventing the wheel in all of those ways, are always helpful.
So I wonder if we, because that was sort of one of our questions, right? Was how do we find that work-life balance? And could the panel like share a little bit about some strategies? Don and I, when we were checking in with Kate yesterday, we're like, huh, I don't really like, that's a great question. So I wonder if folks could just respond to, we'll do that same order of Maura, Kevin, Meg, Christy, Don, Joe, and hi, Claudine. Thanks for joining us.
Hi there.
Just quickly, like, is there something that you found that's helped to give you some sense of balance in this year, especially this year? Maura, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think it's such a good question. I think it's something that people who are new to the profession have always struggled with, and some people who have been doing it for a really long time still, I have some friends who have been teachers for a long time who still really struggle with that. I would say the things that are helpful, and I know that it's a hard thing, but trying to draw that line between doing your work and doing your work at home, and really thinking through, I think, like, what are the things that you're spending time doing? And so, thinking about like, what are the ways that we give students feedback, and what are we grading? And are we grading too much and not giving enough feedback, and some of those pieces? So, I think that's something to think through. What I found really helpful, and not this year, I also feel like when I have young children, I have baby twins. And so my work-life balance is like, it's life, but it's not relaxing or rejuvenating, but I do a lot of life. But I would say it can be really helpful to find a friend or a colleague in the building. There was a group of older teachers who would run after school, and I joined them because they would get me up out of the building and we would just go. And it was really helpful, because if not, and I started teaching at 22 right out of school. I was single. I lived in a teeny tiny 1-bedroom apartment, and I would leave and I'd go home and I'd watch Jeopardy, and then I'd be like curriculum planning and doing all this stuff. And then I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go in, and it's sometimes you just have to find that person that will go for the run with you after work, or go for a walk or something like that, because that can be really, really important to do as well. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that would be sort of my perspective.
Yeah, I think with me, I've luckily, like, I don't know, I'm in a weird spot right now because I'm coaching like 2 different sports and also now teaching a St. Mike's course. So I bit off a little more than I can chew. So it's a bad example right now, but typically I feel really good about just keeping that balance alive. I'd say work-wise, just keeping with that proficiency-based setup and project-based, like I put a lot of stock in starting a good project, but not like trying to spend hours of planning it out for weeks, because you don't know what a kid's gonna or your class is gonna bring week to week. So it's like having those first couple of days and then just be ready to flex with it and make some changes and just integrating with the kids and just figuring out where they need to go next and keeping that fluid. It just feels like there's less pressure. And again, like you're not really giving busy work. It's more about the feedback in real time, which is really helpful. And that's such a big piece of it. I don't feel like I'm ever home just grading papers over and over again. It's, it's the fun stuff of like, hey, what am I going to do, coming up that's going to be engaging for kids, and how am I going to, bring this group up or reconnect with this group or conference with that group. So that part, doesn't feel so daunting and really hasn't. And again, I think leaning on your team too and just figuring out like what works as a team is so big. I say it all the time, I'm so lucky to be on the team I'm on. We're best friends outside of Swift, and throughout this harder year, one thing that has been really great is Bar Hill has been hosting some really great Zoom martini making sessions. So we've been getting together at least once a month for those. Not to say, so I guess mine's not as healthy as Maura's, but no, my team and I, we laugh a lot every single day. We find a reason to laugh. We make each other laugh. We find at least one thing to celebrate with what's going well with this, our team, like the kids every day too. And I think that just keeps the morale really high, because we have plenty of stuff like everybody else to complain about. But I feel like as long as we have one little celebration to share, it's that always that reminder of coming back to like, why are we doing this? And we just really love and care about each other. And that really keeps us coming back every day and staying positive. So, I don't think there's like a one answer of here's how you do it. But I think, Kate, you hit it earlier, just you have to allow yourself to take time. You have to allow yourself to say, yeah, this is enough. I'm providing a good enough experience for my kids. I'm building relationships. I'm keeping them safe. I'm making them feel valued and respected in my community. And that's really what this is about. The curriculum piece, everything else, that's secondary. Like if a kid can come into your space and feel safe and feel heard, like, shoot, that's the job. So I think if you start looking at life through that lens, it really helps out.
Thanks, Kev. Our fix is Fiddlehead because it's right down the road. So we go to Fiddlehead. Kate, something I've been thinking about is what's been my time suck, like what's been the thing that sucked up all my time, and then trying to counter it with like, so if this particular unit that I was in was really very projecty and kids were really engaged and the upfront part was less on me, then I'll try to like flip flop it the next time. So then I'll try to figure out, okay, this time it might be a little bit more of a structured unit with smaller tasks instead of these big overarching projects. So trying to find that dance. And I think the thing that I'm still trying to figure out is looking for how kids can show me their thinking without it always having to be writing. Just this week, I had the benefit of a student teacher, but doing that, the idea of, to assess is to sit side by side. And so she and I have just been walking around the room, like with a checklist and just saying, this is what we're observing in student conversations, or this is how they're demonstrating their thinking with like hexagons. Becky gave us that resource last week. That was phenomenal. And I know that MGI has had some tools available, but it would be really helpful, I think, if if this group or somehow had a Padlet or something where we could like post, here's the units that we did on, I don't know, or here's critical thinking strategies, or here's 3 current events discussion. I don't know. Having sometimes a clearinghouse of just like, here's my go-to clearinghouse helps me to not spend hours sifting and searching and curating resources. And then Fiddlehead. Christy.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about this actually, because part of the reason I left the classroom, at least temporarily, don't know if it's permanent, but it was to to write. And I actually just wrote an essay about my first year of teaching. And I've just been thinking a lot about how hard it was. And I was at a boarding school. My first 2 years of teaching were at a boarding school. So I was, doing dorm duty and coaching a sport and all the things that come with that. And it was just so tough. I think it was probably the hardest year of my life for sure. And I think over the years, I got a lot better at setting boundaries. Like in the last couple of years, I basically said, like, I will not work on Saturdays. Like, I won't look at email. I won't touch a paper. Because I was, teaching 11th grade English, 9th grade English. So I always had essays and, a lot of writing to get through. But I would just say, like, no, Saturdays are mine, because I know if I work on Saturday and Sunday, I will be so bitter Sunday night that I spend my whole weekend, thinking about work. And then just also communicating with students that there was a limit to when they could email me in the evenings, or parents saying past 5, I'm not going to answer my email, unless it's an absolute emergency, but, until 7 the next morning or whatever. I would just sort of make sure that was really clearly communicated. Because there was a while where I was giving out my cell phone number, and that was not a good, idea for parents to have that. And then just getting outside, I would echo that. Just the more you can get outside and remember the worlds outside of your classroom and outside of work and exercise. And so yeah, I don't know that I ever fully mastered it, but it got easier to draw those boundaries and to claim time for myself. But yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this as I've been working on this essay. So thanks.
I know that none of us are administrators, but if there was an administrator listening, a couple of years ago, one of our staff meetings was a group run. You could choose these different activities, and one of them was a group run. And it's still my best staff meeting that I ever had in my life. We had 5 people just jogging through Hubbard Park, and it was awesome. And I don't know why they don't do that on a more regular basis. So I kind of agree with Maura. If you can get out and exercise, sometimes with colleagues, it just provides a different way of conversing, and kind of it brings people together. I have not mastered the work-life balance at all. But I will say that I think it's seasonal. It helps me to look at it seasonally. So I have some outdoor activities in the fall that I'm absolutely will not give up, right? And so I've kind of pared down what I focus on. And in the fall, I'm totally focused on a few specific outdoor activities. And what I do is I'll block off my calendar 6 months ahead of time. I'll say this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'm not going to meetings, or I'm, Tuesday and Thursday of this week, and then Monday and Wednesday of the next week. And I run that by my wife, and so people say, oh, I set up a meeting no, you didn't, because I'm not going, right? And I think that that's really important, because people will, if you don't take care of your time, people will not respect it. And so I just set up specific days, and no way, I'm not doing it. You have to set it for another day. Or this is not very nice, but what I'll do is I'll say, oh, you want to meet that day? I'm available at 6:30 in the morning. Let's do that. And so but you really got to be you got to be, this is what I'm doing. And I think that if you block it out like that, it makes it a lot easier. And if you just are upfront with people and tell them, if you want to set a meeting with me, plan it a month in advance. And that's that's kind of organization. And I think that if you organize your calendar that way, you'll find that you actually have more free time. And then when you are in a meeting after school, you're no problem, because you're not bitter about it. And then the other thing I would say is that, like I said, seasonally, I think right now is a hard time of year. It's a good time of year because the days are getting longer. But I think that you have to predict when, going into December and early January, and it's dark in the morning, it's dark in the night. And so what are you doing to, say, okay, this is the dark time of year. And then I think it's really important to think seasonally. And right now, the days are getting longer much more quickly than at other times of the year. So trying to take advantage of that, whether you go skiing or, you have a couple half hour, 45 minutes extra light time. So starting to use that time for outdoor activities. I think Christy said getting outside, which I think is really, really important. And then the one thing, I'm starting a new program as well. this year. And so I'm sort of swallowed up by that. But what I'm looking for is high stakes curriculum items. So I don't want to do a million things, but I want to do 2 or 3 things that I know kids really like. And so I used to teach this book, Fever 1793. Kids really enjoyed that book. It was a wide range of reading abilities. And so finding things that really hook kids and then getting good at that. Instead of like doing a billion different things, just find the things that are high stakes and then become experts on that. And I think that's going to facilitate your ease and understanding of what you need to do to, or all of us, to be more effective. Thank you.
Joe?
Prioritize. That's all I got, really, because things change. Kevin gave his list of the things he's doing, and there's 3 more of them on his list than I would ever want to take on right now. But he's got it figured out, and we're all different. And so prioritize what's valuable to you, and then draw lines. And it's going to be different at different times of your career, and different times of the season, and different times in your personal life. All those things make it so that there's no one constant. But prioritizing and drawing lines and being clear about what's most important is the thing that keeps you going. And then embrace the fact that you really love your job. I guess that's another thing, is that there'll be times when you have to make decisions that mean that you don't do other things. But if you love your job, then you do that. And then you work it out. So that's all I got.
So, such a great wealth of wisdom. And I think what I heard, Kate, were things like, you have a network, you're trusting your gut. I think for new teachers, like just having that supportive network and reaching out to colleagues. I mean, even just having your voice here in this arena for us is helpful to us. It's when I check in with you, it gives me a boost, because I'm like, oh yeah, Kate's doing this. I literally would steal your circle slides. So, I mean, when we find those ways to connect and help each other out, I think it fills our bucket. It helps us get through the harder parts. We're coming upon the last 2 minutes. So the first thing I just want to do is, Kate, thank you so much. We've always wanted to do a blog or something together. So I'm thrilled to have you here. It's been great. It would be really great for you to join us anytime it works out with your marathon training schedule to come join us.
But also say no.
Yes, exactly. We got it. And then Don, do you want to just throw out some announcements for us?
Yep. There's again, Kate, thank you so much for joining us. I do, I forget what it was like. It's been so long. I forget what it's like to be in that position. But the feedback is really important to hear, and I appreciate your taking the time. Our next conversation is actually Thursday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So if you can spare an hour before whatever happens after that, that would be great. And then the Middle Grades Institute, I just want to put that out there for folks. That's happening from June 27th to July 1st. And it's going to be a hybrid format this year with some in-person teams, some remote learning. It's going to be a great opportunity for teams to kind of stay in their region, we think, and work together to keep planning around, as Joe mentioned, what's happened and how we create great educational experiences for kids despite the challenges. And then just the last thing, the Middle Grades Review is out there and available. They are requesting publications or submissions. So if you're interested in writing about any of these experiences, they would love to hear it. And then I know, Christy, are there any Up for Learning events that you would like us to know about?
Sure. We're always looking for folks to attend our racial justice dialogues, which happen once a month, and they're entirely student facilitated. It's students from Harwood Union High School and students from a historically Black boarding school in Mississippi called Piney Woods, and they plan and design these dialogues every month, and they're just incredible. We had one yesterday where we talked about critical race theory, and it was fascinating. We could have been talking for a long time, but we have them every month, and you can find information on them on our social media and our website. But we're always looking, and middle school students would be more than welcome to join in. So yeah, that's something that happens every month.
And Christy, we're actually, the family board has put together a series of virtual events in March. So instead of our March conference, we're doing sort of 3 Wednesday events during the day. And so one of them is partnering with UP and just joining that racial justice dialogue. So
Awesome.
That's one event, and then there'll be 2 others, and it'll be on our family website. So we're totally fired up to.
Awesome. They're always incredible.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Anybody else have suggestions or events that they would recommend? All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much, everybody. It's amazing. I say this every month, but this has become my go-to group, my support group, and we've been doing this for a long time. And we've been through thick and thin, and right now it's pretty thick, I think. But I want to wish all of you just a tremendous break. I hope you have the chance to unwind and relax. I'm planning on taking some big naps. I'm excited for that. Maybe even read. Whatever you need to do to unwind. I just hope you have a great break. We'll see you on March 17th. Thanks for everything that you do. Have a great day, everybody, and take care. Thank you.